the story of the Corbyn movement hasn't yet had an ending, and the proof of it is here today, and the proof of it is in the courage of those councillors who have stood up for their principles and resigned from the Labour Party to start something new in their localities and on a national level on the basis of the principles for which Jeremy Corbyn stood and stands today. And that is the continuing living legacy of the period of Jeremy's leadership of the Labour Party. It's an example, what we're hearing today, of the, if ever the slogan, think global, act local, has been put into practice. It is all the stories we have heard today from people who have taken a stand on principle on the genocide in Gaza, but are also integrating that with work in their own communities to challenge the bankrupt duopoly of Labour and the Conservatives. Now, I have 3 points I want to make about the Jeremy Corbyn period which are relevant. First, why did the ruling class hate Jeremy Corbyn so much? They could live with anti-austerity. They could live with nationalising the water industry if they had to. What they could not live with was his anti-imperialism, his opposition to nuclear weapons, his opposition to NATO, and his support for the Palestinian people. That was a dagger at the throat of the British imperialist state, and that is what they could not tolerate, and that is what is now being carried forward on the streets every weekend, up and down the country, hundreds of thousands and millions of people fighting against the British imperialism and its support for the genocide in Gaza. So the second lesson that we have to take from that is the wretched and reactionary role of the Parliamentary Labour Party. People say, would the state have launched a coup against a Corbyn government? In my view, they wouldn't have needed to. The coup was right there, baked into the Labour Party, baked into the PLP, who opposed him from the moment he became leader until the moment he was forced to resign. If ever there was an enemy within, it was there. And they are still at it. I now work in my semi-retirement in Parliament for the Morning Star newspaper. I was there when that disgraceful charade of a debate on a ceasefire took place in the Commons a couple of weeks ago. People don't know how bad it was. It's all about the Speaker picking the wrong amendment and all that nonsense. Actually, Labour MPs, at the behest of their leadership, were stalling a debate about the genocide that we are supporting in Gaza, raising stupid points of order, forcing unnecessary votes, behaving quite disgracefully. Let me single out Chris Bryant for special opprobrium, the MP for the Rhondda. They have learned nothing. They are still a baked-in reactionary force, and until the Labour movement can deal with the Parliamentary Labour Party, it is never going to make any political progress. Now, the fact, and this is now relevant to Rishi Sunak and his speech yesterday. What the message that's coming from the establishment now is that basically, when talking about genocide, the foreign policy of the British state, starting wars and disastrous wars we've seen in the last 20 years, MPs must basically be left in the undisturbed contemplation of what passes for their conscience. No voice from the people must be heard. It is not going to happen, Rishi Sunak. We are not going to leave MPs to vote how they want without mass pressure from outside. And that is why they are all basically losing their stuff over what's happened in Rochdale. I want to just take a minute, if I can, to talk about that. I think I can probably say confidently I have known George Galloway for longer than anyone else in this room, for about 40 years. I don't think it means I agree with him on everything, and I don't think I'm blind to things that we might all regard as shortcomings. But I do say this, in the scales of history, what is worth more, those shortcomings or the fact that he led the campaign with others day in, day out, against the criminal war in Iraq, that he has fought for the Palestinians. If you are right on war, if you are right against imperialism, if you are right on Gaza, then that has to be the foundation for us working together on those principles. And I hope that Jeremy Corbyn, Claudia Webb and George Galloway and others unite in Parliament to start opposing the front bench duopoly of support for genocide. Jeremy Corbyn was a product of mass politics. He only became leader of the Labour Party because of his involvement in the anti-war movement, his involvement in the anti-austerity movement, his intimate association with the struggles of ordinary people. Yet when he was in there as leader, he was almost isolated in the office of the leader of the opposition, isolated in Parliament. That mass pressure, that mass struggle outside wasn't there. Imagine if he had been leader at the same time as we had this huge movement of solidarity with the Palestinians, at the time when we had the great strike wave of a year or so ago. That is the basis for a transformation of politics. Now we have the mass movement, we have the strike wave, but we don't have the parliamentary leadership at all. But it's so important that we have the councillors, we have elected representatives taking that stand, because we need to walk on 2 feet. A mass movement of millions on the streets, our elected representatives fighting at every level for us. If we walk on 2 feet like that, then our opponents, the Starmers, the Sunaks, we can make them run.
Woo!